At Poitiers, the Black Prince stands victorious in the churning mud, capturing the King of France against a massive, overwhelming enemy army. Illuminated maps reveal the relentless Plantagenet ambition, showing English armies pushing deep into France to claim the throne and expand their empire. Young Edward of Woodstock is rigorously groomed for war, mastering the arts of combat and leadership under the watchful eye of his father. He is invested as Prince of Wales, bearing the heavy responsibility of heir to a warrior king and the future of the realm. The 100 Years' War erupts violently across the Channel, igniting a generations-long struggle for supremacy destined to reshape the map of Europe forever. English longbowmen master the deadly yew-bow, training relentlessly to wield a weapon that will shatter the dominance of armored French knights. Ships gather at the coast, laden with steel and war horses, preparing to carry the English army across the Channel toward Normandy. Edward dons his scarred armor, stepping boldly into his father's shadow as he prepares to lead his first major campaign in France. In 1346, English forces land on French soil, burning a ruthless path inland and striking terror into the heart of the countryside. The army marches as a relentless column through hostile lands, enduring hardship and skirmishes as they push deeper into enemy territory. Villages burn as the Chevauchée ravages the land, breaking French morale and crippling the economy through a strategy of total devastation. Edward studies the tactical map, carefully plotting the route toward the ridge at Crecy, where the English will make their decisive stand. English forces seize the commanding high ground, while the massive French army masses impatiently in the valley below, eager for battle. Archers drive sharpened wooden stakes into the earth, preparing a deadly defensive hedge to break the charge of enemy cavalry. A massive French host approaches the ridge, dust clouding the horizon as thousands of knights and crossbowmen advance toward the English line. Rain soaks the battlefield, causing the strings of Genoese crossbows to slacken while English archers protect their bowstrings beneath their helmets. English bows rise in perfect unison, cold rain dripping from the steel arrowheads as the archers draw their heavy yew staves. A dark storm of arrows descends upon the French, shattering their advance and causing chaos among the ranks of knights and horses. Melee erupts along the line as knights clash violently in mud and blood, the air filled with the sound of steel on steel. The prince fights fiercely in the thick of combat, his blackened armor scarred by blows as he proves his valor on the field. King Edward watches from the windmill, refusing to send aid, determined to let his son win his spurs and prove his worth. The French army collapses, broken by the relentless arrow storm and the disciplined defense of the English men-at-arms and archers. Dusk falls over a field littered with the fallen nobility of France, marking a devastating defeat for the flower of French chivalry. Edward kneels in reverence before the body of the blind King of Bohemia, honoring the courage of a warrior who fought to the end. He adopts the ostrich feathers and the motto Ich Deern, honoring the fallen King of Bohemia and forging a timeless symbol of service. The port city of Calais surrenders after a grueling siege, its defenders starved into submission as English control over the coast tightens. Burghers beg for mercy with ropes around their necks, but Queen Philippa intervenes, persuading the king to spare their lives. The Black Death arrives in Europe, halting all warfare as a deadly pestilence sweeps across the continent, sparing neither king nor peasant. Churches fill with mass graves as Europe mourns its dead, the plague leaving a trail of devastation and social upheaval in its wake. War pauses as the plague reshapes the fate of the continent, forcing a temporary truce while nations struggle to survive the catastrophe. Edward returns as a seasoned commander, ruling in Aquitaine, establishing his court in Bordeaux, and governing his French territories with authority. His blackened armor is polished by squires, reflecting the glow of the forge fire as preparations begin for a new campaign. The great Chevauchée sweeps destructively from Bordeaux to Narbonne, leaving a trail of smoke and ruin across the southern French countryside. Crops and mills burn fiercely, crippling the economy of France and denying resources to the enemy in a war of attrition. King John rallies his nobles, vowing to crush the prince and his raiding army before they can escape back to safety. In 1356, the English army finds itself trapped near Poitiers, outnumbered and cut off by the pursuing forces of the French king. Edward deploys his archers behind thick hedges on a steep vineyard slope, using the terrain to create a formidable defensive position. Archers sharpen bodkin arrows with focused intensity, preparing to pierce the heavy plate armor of the advancing French knights. French knights assemble with arrogant confidence, their banners fluttering as they prepare to overwhelm the English with sheer numerical superiority. Negotiations fail completely as French demands are rejected, making battle inevitable and setting the stage for a bloody confrontation. French cavalry charges impulsively, only to meet a deadly wall of arrows that brings horses and riders crashing to the ground. Horses stumble and fall in the mud, throwing their riders violently as the charge disintegrates under the relentless fire of the archers. Edward directs his reserves with calm authority, his eyes burning with resolve as he commits his forces to the critical moment. Dismounted knights clash in a brutal melee, the earth shaking under their feet as the battle hangs in the balance. Archers flank the struggling French formation, firing arrows into exposed sides and turning the tide of battle with deadly precision. French lines buckle and disorder spreads, the army unable to withstand the relentless pressure and tactical mastery of the English forces. Edward leads a decisive countercharge, lances lowered for impact as his knights surge forward to break the enemy's remaining resistance. War hammers crush helms and swords shatter shields as the melee turns brutally decisive, sealing the fate of the French army. The French army breaks and routs, knights fleeing desperately toward the woods as the English pursue their shattered foes across the field. King John makes a desperate last stand with his personal guard, fighting valiantly until he is surrounded and forced to surrender. Edward dismounts, offering water to the captured King John and treating his royal prisoner with the deep respect owed to a monarch. Poitiers stands as a decisive victory, shaking France to its core as the English capture their king and decimate the nobility. London erupts in cheers as Edward parades the captive monarch through the streets, displaying the triumph of English arms to the world. At a grand banquet, Edward serves King John with chivalric honor, demonstrating the courtly virtues expected of a noble prince. The Treaty of Bretigny grants England vast new territories, securing a massive ransom and marking the zenith of English power in France. English lands expand dramatically, marking the height of Plantagenet power as the map of France is redrawn in favor of the English crown. Edward rules Aquitaine with wisdom and strength, holding court in Bordeaux and managing the complex politics of his French domains. He marries Joan of Kent, uniting two powerful noble houses and strengthening his position through a union of love and alliance. An heir is born to the couple, securing the future of the dynasty and bringing hope to the realm for a stable succession. War calls again as Edward marches to intervene in Spain, leading his army across the Pyrenees to support an ally in Castile. The army crosses the treacherous, snow-capped Pyrenees mountains, enduring freezing winds and difficult terrain as they push toward the Spanish plains. Forces deploy on the open plain for the Battle of Nájera, facing a combined army of French and Castilian troops. Edward rallies his troops with inspiring presence, his sword raised high as he prepares them for the clash ahead. A brilliant flanking maneuver crushes the enemy formation, demonstrating Edward's tactical genius and securing an overwhelming victory on the field. Victory at Nájera cements Edward's legend as a military genius, proving his prowess extends beyond France to the battlefields of Spain. But inside his tent, the prince coughs violently, wiping blood from his lips as a wasting illness begins to consume his strength. Pedro the Cruel refuses payment for the campaign, betraying his ally and leaving Edward to bear the crushing cost of the war. Debt mounts rapidly, ruining Edward's finances and forcing him to impose heavy taxes that spark unrest among his subjects. A harsh hearth tax sparks open rebellion across Aquitaine, turning the local nobility against their English ruler and destabilizing the region. French forces renew the war with vigor, reclaiming lost lands quickly as Edward's grip on his territories begins to slip. Too ill to ride or lead, Edward is carried on a litter, his once formidable body now weakened by disease and exhaustion. Edward besieges the rebellious city of Limoges, determined to punish the defiance and restore his authority over the region. Sappers mine the walls with deadly precision, preparing to bring down the fortifications and breach the city's defenses. The wall crumbles with a thunderous roar, and English troops rush through the smoking breach to storm the city. The city is sacked as flames consume the narrow streets, bringing destruction and death to the inhabitants of Limoges. A bishop pleads desperately for mercy, but Edward turns away coldly, allowing the slaughter to continue in his wrath. Limoges burns fiercely, staining the prince's reputation with the blood of civilians and leaving a dark scar upon his chivalric legacy. The massacre at Limoges tarnishes his image deeply, casting a shadow over his earlier triumphs and questioning the code of chivalry. Broken in health and spirit, Edward returns to England for the last time, leaving his French dreams crumbling behind him. Physicians attend the prince day and night, but his strength fades rapidly as the illness takes its final toll. Edward dictates his will with trembling hands, ensuring his affairs are in order as he prepares for the end. King Edward III sits by his dying son's bedside in grief, the warrior king humbled by the loss of his heir. French territories slip away as the prince weakens, the empire he built beginning to dissolve without his commanding presence. The Black Prince dies in silence, his breathing finally ceasing as England mourns the loss of its greatest warrior. A solemn funeral procession carries his body toward Canterbury Cathedral, the nation pausing to honor the fallen hero. The coffin enters the cathedral amidst clouds of incense smoke, borne by nobles and knights in a display of reverence. His helm, shield, and gauntlets hang proudly above the tomb, eternal symbols of his martial prowess and noble status. Workmen lower the gilded bronze effigy onto the stone chest, capturing his likeness in metal for generations to come. The prince's legacy radiates powerfully from his resting place, inspiring awe and reflection in all who visit his shrine. The tomb inscription warns visitors with solemn words, "Such as thou art, such once was I," reminding all of mortality. Pilgrims kneel before the tomb in devotion, rows of candles burning bright as they pay homage to the legendary prince. The ostrich feather badge endures as his timeless symbol, adopted by future heirs and woven into the fabric of royalty. Young Richard II is crowned king, bearing the heavy weight of his father's shadow and the expectations of the realm. War continues to rage, but the Plantagenet dream slowly fades as French forces regain strength and English fortunes decline. Chroniclers record the prince's deeds in rich illuminated manuscripts, preserving his story in ink and gold for posterity. A stone cross stands as a memorial to the Battle of Crecy, marking the field where the prince first won his spurs. A veteran knight prays at the tomb, honoring his commander and remembering the camaraderie of campaigns long past. The prince's surcoat fades with age, preserved carefully in a reliquary as a sacred relic of his life and wars. Maps show the dramatic rise and fall of his empire, illustrating the fleeting nature of conquest and the tides of history. Ich Dirn is carved in stone, a motto lasting centuries and embodying the spirit of service that defined his life. Canterbury Cathedral towers rise majestically against the twilight sky, standing as an enduring monument to faith and history. A child plays with a wooden toy knight bearing 3 feathers, unknowingly echoing the symbols of the Black Prince. The prince's seal matrix displays intricate heraldry, a testament to his authority and the artistry of his age. The map dissolves into parchment texture, leaving only the icon of his tomb as a focal point of memory. Candlelight dances softly across the bronze effigy's face, bringing a lifelike warmth to the cold metal of the monument. The nave stands silent and still, dust motes floating in shafts of light that illuminate the grandeur of the church. Painted feathers above the tomb remain vibrant through the ages, defying time with their enduring color and symbolism. A pilgrim leaves a white rose upon the stone steps, a gesture of remembrance for the warrior who lies within. Legends of the Black Prince spread far across Europe, growing with each retelling until fact and myth become intertwined. The epitaph pleads for mercy with the words, Miserere me Deus, revealing the humility beneath the warrior's proud exterior. Edward of Woodstock rests eternally within Canterbury Cathedral, remembered through the ages as England's greatest warrior and the immortal Black Prince.